This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so picking up where we left off, we are on Safari. It's 4:40, and we discussed. Hi, Carol, and we discussed how it is that a person needs to make their efforts, but recognize that ultimately it's coming from God. The same way when it comes to our lifespan, when it comes to our health, so it's when it comes to our parnasa, our sustenance, we make the effort, but ultimately it's coming to us from God. Now that was one chelek, that was one portion of what we were discussing. And then he also mentioned um, other people that we might be supporting or might be dependent upon us, and our stuff. So how are we supposed to look at those components of who we are? So let's begin again. 4:40 in Sefaria, Shar Bitachon, the gate of trust. Perish Hachelek Hasheni, and that second aspect of Bitachon, Hu Beinyanei Kinyanei Ha'adam, that has to do with the acquisitions of a person, the Sibot Tarfo, right? And also having to do with that which brings about our sustenance, v'ofanei asakav kemischar, and our dealings, be it in business, malacha, work, halichot hadrachim, traveling on the roads, maybe an Uber driver, minoi, different appointments, chirut, things that we're hired for, pikidot, things we're appointed to, avodat malachim, right? In those times, the king would give you certain tasks, certain responsibilities. The gizbarot, the kablanut, the emunah, the safrut, uminei ha'avodot, all different types of work. Halichot, hamidbarot, hayamim, traveling out to the deserts, traveling overseas. Va'adom elazeh. I think there used to be a show, maybe there still is, on the world's most dangerous jobs, right? The most dangerous professions, right? And driving trucks over the ice in the North Pole, the South Pole. I mean, wild, crazy stuff. So how dangerous can a person? How much danger can a person put themselves into, right, for their parnasa? So he says as follows. And other such things, mimashimit askinbo, that with areas where we put in our effort, lekabetz mamon, in order to gather wealth, ulaharbot motrei ha michya, and to increase. Hi, Robin. To increase motrei ha michya, all of Robin. You wait for a personal invitation each week. I'm kidding with
What?
you.
Oh,
I said,
I've been sick and I always think about it in the morning, but honestly, right now I totally forgot about it again. So I'm sorry.
okay. I'm willing to send you the WhatsApp. It's okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Right. And to increase Motrei HaMichya. So in Safaria, Robin, we're in 4 I still think 4:40 probably, not yet 4:41.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
To increase the Motrei, all of the extras of life. Ofane, the pathway. Yosher, of straight bitachon, trust Bahem. And in these areas, Alalukim, Sheyitasek bima shezimin lo abore mehem litzorech sipuko umizono ulagia el ma sheyesh bo dai min haolam. To put in the efforts, yitasek, it means to really work in that area that God has prepared for us in order to have that which we need, sipuno, our needs, mizono, our food, ulagia el ma sheyesh bo dai min olam, in order to reach to the point that that is what we need. Okay? Now, different people have very different needs, right? Very different thresholds of what they need. And if the Creator, God will decree that you'll get more, tivoehu, you will get that mibli toreach v'yigia. Very interesting. So he's laying down a real principle over here. You have to put in the toil for your needs, for your sustenance. More than that, extra effort is not going to bring in more. Extra effort is not going to bring in more. If God will decree you'll get more, tivoehu, it'll come to you mibli torech v'yigia, without the extra work. Kasher yivtach elokim ba, if we placing our trust in God. V'lo yarbe lachzor l'sibot, and one should not overdo all of their efforts in order to bring in more and more and more. V'lo yismach alein bilibo, and this is pretty crucial also, not to rely on them in your heart, meaning right, the title of the sefer is Chovot Halevavot, which means the duties of the heart. Right? So it's not just what we do, it's also what we think. Right? It's where our emphasis is, it's where our reliance is. Right? And to not think that it is this that is bringing me my sustenance, it is this that is getting me my wealth, right? But recognize I'm making someone gives you a stock tip, right? 15 years ago, more than that, right? 20 years ago, someone told you there's this crazy thing called Bitcoin. They cost about a nickel each. I strongly urge you to buy 1,000 of those, right? Invest $50, right? Invest $50 and get yourself 1,000 Bitcoins and then just put them away, right? And call me again in 20 years and we'll talk, right? You had people who bought Bitcoin and then used it to buy a slice of pizza back in the day when they were at $2-3 each, right? Now they're rounding $100,000, right, for each Bitcoin, right? So certainly a person should should make a phone call and say, hey, buddy, thanks, that was a good tip. I just retired at age 27, thanks to you, right? That was a pretty good tip you gave me. But at the same time, to recognize that this is the money that God wanted him to have, or him or her to have. And it's not this person, it's not the Bitcoin that got it. I've shared this story before, I'm not sure to this group or another group, but it's so worthwhile, of the person who came to a rabbi in Jerusalem and he was collecting money and the rabbi didn't have any money to give him. But he had a lottery ticket. Probably someone had given him a lottery ticket. He had a lottery ticket, so he gave it to this guy. The guy knocks on his door 10 days later and says, Rabbi, we won. What do you mean we won? We won the lottery, right? And it wasn't like the Powerball, 800 million, right? But it was a fairly significant amount in Israel. Maybe it was worth, $5,000, whatever it was. So, Rabbi, I want to split it with you. And he said, I don't understand. He goes, no, Rabbi, the lottery ticket you gave me, that's the one that won. And the rabbi said, I don't understand. He said, no, the way a lottery works is not, I understand how a lottery works. What I don't understand is it's not the lottery ticket that gives wealth. Hashem decided he wanted to give you some wealth. You had a lottery ticket, so therefore he gave it to you via this lottery ticket. The lottery ticket was a conduit through which God sent his bracha, his blessing to you. But it's not the lottery ticket. Had I had the ticket, if I'm not supposed to have the money, it wouldn't have won. And you would have gotten the 5,000 shekel or dollars through a different means. And that's the idea of lo yismoch aleihem belibo. That's again in our hearts. Don't put your trust in that belibo, in your heart. Recognize where it is coming from and don't get distracted by the conduit, by the messenger through which it came. Vim lo yigzaru lo yoter min hamazon. And again, going back to putting in that extra effort and leaving the family and not having time with the family and not having time to do mitzvot because I have to work so much harder on on this project because I need to make that much more money than I actually need. Realize that, like you said before, if you're supposed to get it, you'll get it without that extra effort. Once you put in the effort for your basic needs, you'll get the extra without the extra effort. And if it will not be decreed for you to have more than your needs, with all of the effort that you're going to put in, whether it's shamayim va'aretz, heavens and earth, you can move heavens and earth, lo sif alav, to get more, lo hayu yicholim b'shum panim. It's not going to work. You will not be able to. V'lo b'shum siba, and you're not going to get any more than you are supposed to get. So all this extra effort that we end up sacrificing so much for in terms of family time, in terms of spousal time, in terms of kids time, in terms of community time, in terms of friends, in terms of mitzvot, in terms of God time, all that you're sacrificing is for naught. If you're supposed to get it, you'll get it without the sacrifices. If you're not supposed to get it, even with all the sacrifices, you're not going to get it. The kasher yivtach be'elukim, and therefore when a person has this bitachon, this trust in God, yimatzei menuchat libo v'shalvat nafsho, then a person can have this calm equanimity that, hey, it's not that if only I would have done this, then that would have happened. Oh, if only I had if only I had invested in this, if only I put it to rest. And that just eats away at a person, right? And drives you crazy. Put it to rest. Have menuchat libo. Your heart doesn't need to start pounding. Menucha. Well, keep pounding, but not over pounding. We want it to pound, just not overly, not too hard. You want to have your menuchat libo, the peace of the calm mind, shalva nafsho, the peace of mind. Ki lo ya'avrenu chuko el zulato. Don't worry. What's supposed to be coming to you, right, is not going to anyone else, right? That's what sometimes eats us up. Oh, that could have been mine. Now look what they got. No. Don't worry. It's not going, chuko, what's meant for you is not going el zulato, to anyone else. V'lo yakdim, v'lo ya'acher, me'ito hanigzarat lo ba. It will not come any later. It will not come any earlier than the time in which it was decreed that it will come to you. Okay. V'yeshem manhiga bore tarfei rabim ibnei adam aidei ish echad mehem. For whatever reason, sometimes God will decide that the sustenance of many is going to come through one person, one individual. And this guy is the one who's paying the wages for all of these people. Lavchin bazeh. Why might God do that? So as we always say, everything is a nisayon. And instead of saying a nisayon is a test, I like to say a nisayon is a challenge. It's a challenge to see how will a person deal with whatever situation is coming their way. So for the recipients, right? So their challenge is to hold their heads high, to not feel that, oh, I'm a schlepper, I'm dependent on this other person, and recognize that's through whom their parnasa, their sustenance is coming, and to recognize that it's coming through God, from God, through that person or whatever that is, and to utilize their time without being haughty on one hand, without getting getting depressed on the other hand, and the person who's sustaining to recognize I am a conduit through which other people are being supported. What a bracha, what a blessing that God has given me this opportunity to help His children, to help His sons and daughters, right? And we often say it's so important when we have these situations to think, if the tables were reversed, how would I want to be treated? And that's how we try to lead ourselves in the way that we treat other people, right? I have situations here. I have a rabbi's discretionary account, right, which I'm able to help many people with, thank God, and and thanks to those who donate to that and enable that. And when someone's sitting by my desk, I think, well, if I were the one coming to the rabbi or someone, right, how would I want to be treated? And that's how I try to treat, in general, how we try to treat people. So the person who's in this position of supporting others, he should be thinking, how would I want to be treated if the tables were reversed, right? And thank God, whenever someone complains to me and says, oh, this person came to me for tzedakah again, I say to them, I say, I thank God that I'm in a position to help and not in a position that I need to be asking. And we have to be so appreciative that you're in the position that they're coming to you as opposed to you going to them. All right. So this person who is in this position, he has to make sure that he keeps his wits about him and doesn't become full of him or herself in that position. So this is lavchin bazeh. This is in order to demonstrate, that person can demonstrate avodato lelokim, that person's service to God, mehamuroto, or the person's kind of rebellion, or cutting God out of the equation and thinking, I'm the one who's doing all this. V'yasim et zemen asibot hachazakot shesibot hanisayon v'asata lo. Right, and to recognize that this is one of the great, strongest ways of measuring a person. Do I use that which is given to me as a means of doing what is right in God's eyes, to give out to others, to support those in need? Or will I say that, oh, this is, right, this is for me, right? And I can't, why should I help others? Let them do it. Let them get their job. Let them roll up their sleeves, pull themselves up by their bootstraps, as the expression goes, right? And to ignore them, right? Because I need to become wealthier and wealthier and wealthier. So this is one of the great ways of determining where a person is at. We did that kamelech, like a king, shumatriv chelov avadav, who needs to support his soldiers, his servants, the sarim, and also other officers, roya melech, baskanim, different right, and officers, asher simutayim kitot meavdehem, that they have around them, dependent upon them, groups of different servants, whatever it may be, upkidehem, right, those that are working for them, nashim, family, krovim, relatives, umishtadlim bavuram lachzor al sivot kivat samamon mipanim tovim v'ra'im. So when a person's feeling that pressure, so then there are different ways. There are the positive ways that a person paths that a person can take in order to have the means, and then there are the more nefarious, not so kosher ways of trying to have the means. V'asachal mehem, a person who's acting in a foolish manner, yit'eh b'shlosha panim. There are three mistakes generally that such a person makes. Echad mehem, one of them, b'kavtsoa mamon, when he is, right, gathering all of that wealth. Ki hu lokeach ma shegazel abore b'tachto al panim migunim v'ra'im. So what is a person doing? He puts it so beautifully. You are getting that which God decreed you should get, but you're choosing to get it by cheating people, by stealing, by not by being dishonest. You are taking that which the Creator has decreed for you,
Hi.
that you'll take that. Al panim megunim v'rayim, and you're doing it in a dishonest, in such a fashion. And if you would have sought it in its proper way, then you would have been doing it. You would have gotten what you wanted. And you would not have been sacrificing your God Jewish Torah moral obligations, ve'olamo, actually he says, and you're actually sacrificing your world for this, because right, how many people have we heard about, or we might know, who decided to skip this and twist that, in order to make more money, and then they find themselves on the wrong side of the law. So you are sacrificing your God connection and even your world connection. And the person would not have anything, would not be missing anything, would not have any less than that which God had decreed. So a mistake that a person makes is, oh, I've got to do this, so I've got to do this by any means. And by any means often means by dishonest means. And the foolishness that he says is that what you're supposed to get, you're going to get. So do it in an honest fashion, right? You'll be true to yourself, true to what you believe in, right? And you'll have this world and the next world. Do it in a dishonest fashion. You're not going to be gaining anything, but you'll be losing tremendously. Vasheni, secondly, the second mistake that people make, Kihu Choshev, he thinks, Shekol Ma Sheigi Alav Min Amamon, Hu Teref Mizono. He thinks whatever I end up getting, that is for me. That goes into the category of my sustenance, my needs, and therefore he has this sarut ayin. He has this stingy eye from giving what he has to anyone else. Below Yavin, he doesn't realize ki ateref mitchalek lishlosha chalakim, that all that a person earns, one's assets, are divided into three categories. Echad mehem teref mizono v'hu kikalat gufo bilvad. One of them is what I need to eat, what I need to sustain myself. V'hu hamuvtach min Elokim, and this is guaranteed from God. L'chol asher bo ruach chayim ad tachlit yamav. Right, that God will give whatever is guaranteed for that person. God is going to give it to that person, right, throughout one's days. Hasheni, a second category of my assets is teref mazon zulato, the sustenance of those besides me. Isha, spouse, banim, children, servants, mishartim, and such things. Ve'einenu muftach min Elokim l'chol habruim, al l'skula mehem b'tanem miyuchadim. And that comes at times and doesn't come at other times. V'hu mikre mizdamein be'et achad ve'ein mizdamein be'et acheret. This will be there for a person at some times and not at other times. That is the intertwining of God's judgment and kindness. Now, what I'm not sure about that, or I'm not sure if I'm understanding this or how to understand this. Well, so whatever I need for my sustenance will come to me. Well, my kids also, whatever needs for them will come to them. So what I think he's saying, I think the way to understand this is if it'll come through me or not, that is something that is not a guarantee, right? What the individuals will get for themselves, that is set. Will I be the benefactor? Will it come through me? Sometimes yes, sometimes not, based on God's merging, we said, of chesed, kindness, and mishpat, and judgment. The third category, Vashlishi, teref, kinyan, hu ha-mamon, that's the money, or the assets we acquire, asher ein bo to'elet la'adam. That it's things that we don't, right? This is our riches, right? That we don't really gain from. Rabbi Abraham Twersky tells a great story. Rabbi Twersky was blessed memory, was a giant of a person. He was born of a whole Hasidic lineage, and at the same time he became a psychiatrist and psychologist, I believe, and set up these different addiction centers, right? Mostly in Pennsylvania where he lived, right? Not necessarily for Jews, for everyone. He was just he was all over the place. And he tells a story that someone came to see him. So he says, "Yes, how can I help you?" The person says, "My family insisted that I come to see you." Okay, I'm glad you came. Why? See, he said, "I love pancakes." Ratorsky said, "I also love pancakes. Who doesn't love pancakes?" And the guy's eyes lit up. And he said, "Oh, you love pancakes? You got to come to my house. I've got pancakes in the bedrooms. I got pancakes in the closets. I've got pancakes. You name it, right? The whole house is covered with pancakes, right? So obviously then there's something wrong over there. There's something off, right? Because pancakes are great if they serve a purpose, which is a good Sunday morning breakfast, whatever it might be, right? It's a means, it's not an end. When a means becomes an end, then there is there's something that's off. And he says so too, money is a means. It's not an end. But when money becomes a means in and of itself, then that's already something is off. That's already a sickness. And that's what he's talking about over here. Right? Things she'ein bo to'elet la'adam. V'hu shomer alav v'notzeroto, but he's guarding it and he is amassing it. Ad asher yorishenu zulato. What is the ultimate end? And here he gets a little bit in our face, right? In order to have someone else inherit it. O sheyovad mimenu, or until you lose it. Vasachal yachshov, and this foolish person is thinking, Kol asher gazla bari min mamon, anything that God, any money that God has sent my way, shu tarif mizono, it goes into category 1. It's there just for me, for my needs. Kalkalakufo, v'huma maher alav, mishter alav, and he runs to it, and he puts all this effort into it. The efshar, and it's possible, sheyikabtsenu labal ishto acharav. Ouch. Person amasses all this wealth for his wife's second husband. Ouch. Ula chorgo. Oh, two different texts, right? Or for a stepchild, one text. Or ula hargo, or for the one or the person who murders him, heaven forbid. Ula gadol shebesonav, or to be taken over by his arch enemy, right? We put all this time and effort into things that are not, right? If we use it properly, we recognize we're a conduit, and we help others. And it doesn't mean that a person can't live comfortably if they're doing well. But there is this idea of maaser. That is the best way to gauge. Maaser is giving 1/10 of one's take-home income post-taxes, and making sure that 1/10 is going to others, is going to individuals, going to institutions, going towards, we'll call it, for lack of a better word, charitable causes, right? For good causes. And that's how a person has to recognize that and realize that. So the first mistake is that a person is doing it through devious, dishonest means. Second mistake we said was that he thinks everything is just for me, to keep me pampered and great. Vashlishi, shu notena trofim leba'aleim. And this goes back to our chovot halavavot, the duties of the heart. Oh, he distributes it. He gives out this leba'aleim to those that he's supposed to give it to. As God had decreed for whatever reason that this person's sustenance will come through me. Right? But he's constantly reminding them about how grateful they need to be to him. Right? He's zocher. He mentions tovato lahem, the appreciation that they need to have for him. Ki'ilu hu hatrifam bahem, as if he is the one who is actually the one who is truly supporting them, not recognizing that he is the pathway through which God is sending these people that which they need, that which they're supposed to have, and he should feel fortunate that God is sending it through him. But he confuses the messenger with the owner, and he thinks, I'm the one who is doing that. I'm keeping them afloat. Bam alehem. And therefore, he sort of lords over them. Verotze, and he insists, sheyoduhu, v'yishabchuhu harbe alehem, that they will thank him and praise him for doing that. V'shiyavdu avavuram, and be subservient to him because of that. V'yitka'eh, and he becomes haughty. V'yigva, v'yarum levavo, and he becomes all full of himself. His heart becomes lifted up. V'yaniach hoda'ato alehem, and he places their gratitude, right? They have to have all of this gratitude to him. V'yachshov, and thinking, she'imhu monea otamehem hayunisharim etzlo. If I would not be giving this out to them, I would have so much more. V'chilulehu hayunisakim trofehem, and they are dependent on me. Were it not for me, they'd have nothing. V'hu ha'ani, and this poor person, interesting, the term that he uses, right? This fabulously wealthy person who's convinced that everyone is surviving based on his generosity, right? He actually is ha'ani. He is the poor person. Why? Asher yigala rik ba'olam hazeh, that this person will end up toiling, yigala rik, for naught in this world, v'yafschitz charo olam haba, and lose the reward that he could and should have for his actions, l'olam haba, in the world to come. So this person is, and this again is going back to the Chovot HaLevavot. It's not only what we do, but it's our thoughts. It's where our intentions are, right? The Gemara says that a person who gives money to a poor person receives 6 blessings from the verses there in the prophets, and a person who shares a kind word receives, I think it's 11 blessings, right? In other words, it's not just what we do, but it's how we do it, right? And how do we make a person feel in that which we are doing? And is it all coming from me, or do we recognize that it's a blessing that Hashem has given me the opportunity to help others? Yeah, it's funny. I always say this happens a lot. I have this Rabbi's discretionary account, and people are thanking me, and I say, I will extend your thanks, right, to those, right, but it's not me, right. I'm just a conduit, and I have the very very fortunate appointment of being able to distribute that. The person needs to realize that really each of us have a discretionary account, and that is the 1/10 of the earnings that we decide which causes are worthwhile and what do we want to support. I think it was Warren Buffett years ago was approaching many of the billionaires and asking them to give half of their fortune to charitable causes, whichever ones they want. It wasn't for him to say which ones, but let's do that. And he said many agreed, and many did not agree. And when he came across a bunch that didn't agree, he said he wanted to write a book, How to Survive on 500 Million, right? And send them a copy, send them a copy of the book, How to Squeak By on a mere 500 million, right? For the billionaires who didn't want to give half of it to give over to tzedakah. Yeah, but actually, the Gemara says, the Talmud says that we're not allowed to test God. We can't say, God, I'm going to do this mitzvah, but you better come through, right? You better, right? And the Gemara famously says, a person says, God, I have a mezuzah on my door. God says, that's great. Who gave you the house, right? I put tefillin. I wrap my tefillin on my arm. Beautiful. Who gave you the arm, right? So a person needs to recognize that this is a gift, and to use that properly, but to recognize that it's a gift that one has, that one can direct this. And what I started to say before, the Talmud says we're not allowed to test God. There's one area we can test God, and the verse says that bring to my house, give your maaser, give your tithes, ubachanuni na bazot, and test me, please. Imlo eftach lachem arubat hashamayim ad belidai. If I will not open up the windows of the heavens, ad belidai. And the Gemara says, until your mouth will become tired from saying enough, enough, enough. And I always imagine that, the $100 bills are coming down. Enough, enough, enough. But when Natalie and I got married at a very young age, I was 20, she was 19. A year later, we moved to Israel, no family there. And we were living very, 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 very simply, very happily, very beautifully, but very simply. And I was the one of my siblings who was not a professional. So my father was a professor and a physical therapist. I was always worried, will I have enough? So I'd always be saying, Gene, are you doing okay? And I said, thank God, Dad, thank God, I have enough. And that was before we had kids, and then we had one child, and then more children. Kanai Hara had 7 children, and at each stage, right, I had enough. Right, I started doing this, I started doing that, I started teaching, I did this also, and you had enough. The one thing that we can test Hashem on is this: if we will serve as a trusted conduit, that the blessing that He gives to us, that at least 10% of that flows to others, then we have this guarantee that we will have enough. And that's the greatest bracha. That's the greatest bracha, right? Yaakov famously said when he meets Esav in next week's parsha, or parsha after that, Yesh li kol, I've got everything. Right? Esav said, I have a lot. You have a lot, there's always room for a little bit more. Jacob said, Yesh li kol, I've got everything. And that's That's the bracha that a person can have. And a lot of it depends, like we said, on the chovat halvavot, on the attitude that a person has in their heart, not just what they do, but how they feel and how they approach it. Okay, my friends, we'll call it over here. Where are we in Sefaria? 4,
48.
448. Good. Okay. I'm going to run to davening. Good seeing you all. Have a very good night.
Thank you.
Everyone.